Yo, what's going on guys? Today I'm going to be using the Allo. To start off this video, we are fighting a Rex, me and my friend. Now, right here we were trying to get a decent amount of bleed on him, not only to activate a perk that gives us 10% damage, but also just to stop him from healing. Also he just loses a little bit of health every time he moves around. He's going to the water, but he's got 0 stam left, so we just chase him, and he's also very low. So the Rex actually does have really good oxygen in the water, which is kind of crazy and can be very annoying to deal with. The whole time the bleed is still on him, so you can't safe log, and he actually ends up bleeding to death. So we made our way to the central waystone and found a Spino on land, which honestly is a pretty easy kill without him being able to spam that stomp now that it has a 30-second cooldown. And we had a Suko friend here. She took a claw barrage right to the face, which actually did a good amount of damage. And then you can see a Meg comes out as well to help them. So imagine it was a pretty big group, 2 Megs even. The Allo's precise turn and turn radius isn't very good, so you never really want to let a Meg tail ride you. So you have to be very careful and use your tail hit right. And you can see they also brought in the Kello, so you can see here this Landsuko keeps spamming the claw barrage, which is actually very predictable and can easily be countered by a tail attack. Now we actually do put up a pretty good fight against all these dinos. So the Allo is actually pretty strong, it's decent health, a good bite. The only problem with the Allo is, honestly, it's got the worst health recovery I've ever seen. It's so bad, it takes about 10-15 minutes to actually get all your health back after a fight. The stamina and stamina regain are actually decent, especially for the size the Allo is. It's also a free slot, which is surprising. It's a pretty big free slot, and it's got decent speed as well. So it just has bad turn radius and a bad precise. It's also very basic, there's not really any abilities for the Allo, you don't really have much of a choice of what you run. You can actually see that this Suko's getting really low and the Spino comes to save him. Which honestly I should have tail hit way earlier than I did. My friend here goes and tries to finish the kill, which he does end up finishing, but he does also end up dying. So I do end up getting wasteland, and we do get jumped by a bunch of patches, which honestly I wasn't expecting to take this much damage. Even though they did get the jump on me, they took a lot of damage. And one of them actually misses the jump and gets himself killed because of how low he was. And the rest of them just left because of how low they were. Now in this clip, my friend was getting chased by a Tyrannotine, Allo and a few other things. So we decided to set up an ambush and lead them right in. This Allo wasn't adult, so it was actually perfect. I wanted to take the faster things out first, that way they couldn't punish us. As in, if the Tyrannotines got us low, nothing else could catch up to us. I do want to talk about how good the Tyrannotine is at fighting smaller dinos in itself, because of the juke ability. which makes it impossible to tail ride it, because within a few seconds the Tyranno Titan just uses its juke, and now you're face fighting a Tyranno Titan as an Allo, and you just do not want to be doing that. Now at this point I knew the Allo was pretty low, so I went in for the kill. After I dealt with the Allo, I went to go help my friend. As if two Tyranno Titans and an Allo and a Pycno weren't enough, they also brought a Meg. And I end up punishing this Pycno for not paying attention. And at this point my teammate does get really low, so I want to take the pressure off him by getting aggressive and putting as much damage as I can onto that Meg. Now we healed up and got back right to the fight. This is still the same group from before. Now we do want to focus the smaller dinos because, like I said before, really hard to kill the Tyranno Titan because of its juke ability. And not only that, the Tyranno Titan cannot catch up to the Allo, so it's good to take out the Megs and the Pycno first. As you can see there, I did use my tail hit to counter his charge attack, which isn't supposed to actually work. They made a patch to where charge is supposed to be immune to knockback, but for some reason it still works. Now I do kill this Meg, but in return I take a lot of damage, and then this Raptor pounces me that does even more damage. So at this point the only way I survive is to keep running, and if my teammate does his job and puts the pressure onto them to make sure I can get away far enough, especially from the smaller things such as the Megs and the Pycnos, which you can see he does a really good job here and keeps the pressure on the whole time, puts a bunch of damage on them, and that's what ultimately makes me live. So thankfully to him, I'm alive. Now I do need to rest, or else I will bleed out, and you can see just by the sheer pressure and damage that he put on, that Pycno stops chasing me. And it's small plays like this that makes all the difference between good teammates and good teams. You can see how low I got. So we ended up fully healing, and my friend was fighting the Meg and the Titan, so I tried to come and help him out. So it's important when you're chasing something a little bit faster than you to be coordinated with your teammate and cut them off, just like right here. So at this point I was really low on food, so I had to kill something, and I found a subadult Rex. He looked pretty close to adult, and I think he was just a random guy, but we still needed the food, because especially with something like the Allo that has such a bad healing speed to begin with, you really do need the most food and water you can to improve that healing rate. You can tell that this Rex player isn't the best, but that's just how it is playing officials. He should be using his precise turn, going for bone snaps, even put yourself against a wall or near water to improve his chances of surviving, but he does none of that and just gets tail ridden pretty much the whole entire time. It's also really good to tail hit and precise turn at the same time. That way you knock them back and then you also precise turn, because it gives you a little bit more time, a little bit more room to turn towards them, even though the Rex has a very bad turn radius. So the server does reset and we found a couple of ducks on land, which is a pretty good fight to take. So the main goal here is to put bleed on them and to ride them, and we do try and body block them to not get into the water, because at that point we can't really do anything. It's also very important to see and know what build the enemy is running. I could see here that he was using Claw. So Claw does 50% more damage when you are wet and if the target, also if you are dry and if the target is dry. So at that point I knew, okay, I need to get myself wet and he's already wet. So that does 100% less damage than he normally would be doing. So at this point I thought to myself, well, because of that massive debuff, maybe I could even face tank him. My friend does end up killing the duck. Sadly, I don't have the footage for that. In this clip, you can see we enter a fight with a Dasman and a Kilo and a Dino. Now, the Dasp does pop his call, but honestly, he probably could have just got away from us because the Dasp is a little bit faster than the Allo, and I'm pretty sure it's got a little bit more stamina. Honestly, the Dasp is a really good matchup against the Allo because of the scutes you can run, the ones that make you take 25% reduced damage against heavy opponents. If you run that build, could put up a really good fight, if not probably kill the Allo. And especially if there's more than one Dasp, this Dasp gets stronger than the Allo. That's the problem with the Allo, it doesn't really have any builds. There's nothing like any buffs you gain from having more than one Allo or anything. It just doesn't really have anything, whereas like for example 2 Dasps have Tyrant's Ally, 30% increased armor, or Tyrant's Roar, 20% increased damage, so it does play more into a team build, which you can see as second Dasp comes around. Very interested in what they will add for the Allo's TOC. I hope they don't make it too broken or too bad. Hopefully it's something in between. That way not everyone uses the Allo. I think it's a fan favourite. And honestly, that's why I think you don't really see much people playing the Allo, because its lack of abilities, its lack of team play. And honestly, a lot of new players struggle with the turn radius of the Allo. Like for example, the Albert just got its TOC. It's actually very strong. It's got a good turn radius as well, so I don't really know what they're gonna do for the Allo. The Allo's pretty good, but it's just kind of in a tough spot right now because, as I said, when you get into these coordinated group fights where people know what they're doing, when people actually have a build, you get outmatched because all these buffs really do make a difference. You know, a big part of this game is about abilities and builds. Outside of group fights, the Allo is a really good 1v1 dino. So talking about builds and stuff, the subspecies matters a lot. I run the +10 health recovery as it helps you in a prolonged fight. Now you do have to watch out when you're 1v1ing other Allos, especially if they run the +3 attack damage, as they all have the advantage in a face fight. It makes between a 1 to 2 bite difference, maybe even 3, which is big, because there's not really much of a movement skill gap between bigger dinos. They don't really have much. Now, I do see people running the Hatchabite on the Allo, which could be decent. I don't like it because a lot of small dinos just get around it. You know, they get away from you, sit down, get the bleed off, then come back. Whereas if you get in a brawl, you can't really use the Hatchabite too well. Like you can see here, we're in a big fight. 2 Allos versus 2 Spiners and an Allo and a Dasp. And if I had Hatchabite, I couldn't really go in as much as I would want to. I'd have to wait for a cooldown. Now we end up healing up and made our way to SLL. And there was some random fight going on here. We weren't really too sure what was going on. As you can see, we instantly go for the patch and get him killed. Honestly, I don't really like patches, so yeah. I don't really like the playstyle of bait someone to a cliff and knock them off, like, kind of boring. And here we get in a fight with a couple of apexes, which that duck seems to be a land one, just by its attack, claw frenzy, which honestly I think the water duck is way better than the land duck, but everyone prefers something different. And I also do think that water PvP takes a lot more skill because you have a lot more movement. You can go up, down, left, right, back, forward, it doesn't matter. And that tail attack just confirms it. Not only that, it's raining, so he's using a lot more stamina to use that claw frenzy. But he can always still get into the water because he is a duck after all. Unluckily for him, there's a couple of suckers around, so as soon as they see that this guy gets low, they're obviously just going to third party him and just take his trophy. And then you can see Annos just slamming their tails around like a bunch of apes. Nothing you can do about them, really annoying. Also, the AoE makes no sense. How can a tail slam hit someone that's in front of you? And just like that, the Sukkos decide that it's time to third party this guy. And it's not like we are overpacking or anything, we do not know who these Sukkos are. And these two Annos are also just helping the ducks, so. And now when I'm fighting smaller dinos, and I have, for example, an Alio on my team, I like to get the small dinos low. That way the Alio can easily finish them off, which the Alio just didn't listen, did his own thing. So we kind of missed out on a couple of kills. And that kind of goes back to having good teammates, bad teammates, and that's what kind of makes the team work really good or really bad. Now a random Meg comes around and decides to help us out, so we actually end up grouping up with this guy. Then right here I went down just in case the Patchy decided they want to jump down to try and cut him off. And just like I was saying earlier, I really do not like the Patchy's playstyle of just baiting someone to a cliff and then knocking them off, because it's very situational. If someone decides that they do not want to fight you, then you can't really do anything about it. And I honestly think it takes no skill to play a build like that. Now, because Allo doesn't have a great turn radius, you do want to be near your teammate, that way you can cover each other really well. And at this point, it was just a massive free-for-all. Not really sure who all these people were, if they were on a team with each other, but me and my friend just wanted some PvP, so we saw a lamb, and obviously if we want to kill any of the herbivores, we need to take it out. That way there's no heals being given out. And also I think the Allo does pretty well against the lamb. And here's the build that I was running in this video.